Hey guys, it's Barb from Inspire Me 360. And what I wanted to really focus on this evening, it's Sunday night, and I've had a lot of time to reflect this week, and I always kind of want to share, thoughts where I'm at. And I feel like when we go through our own learning and we share it, it's just so much more powerful to share what we're going through. So one of the revelations I kind of came to this week was the power of forgiveness. Of course, I mean, this is kind of a little bit cliche. Of course, we should forgive, and that makes sense, and we've been taught that from a very young age. What I'm talking about in this episode, or what I really want to cover, is the power of forgiving yourself, and then I'm going to look at forgiving others as well. So when I mean forgiving the self, we tend to feel, or we tend to internally be really, really difficult on ourselves. I know I'm extremely difficult on myself. I'm very perfectionistic. Growing up in, a separated family, so having parents that were divorced young, moving a lot, going through the transition of lots of different schools, trying to figure out where I fit in, I always struggled with having that feeling of a solid foundation of who I was and where I was meant to be, and having that specifically love for self. I mean, that's something I've always struggled with, even though there's times where I'm proud of myself, I'm proud of my accomplishments, but I think the sweet spot, or rather I know the sweet spot of really feeling that freedom within yourself to create your best life really starts with loving the self and forgiving yourself. So what I've noticed, especially in terms of patterns, so if you have a history or a certain patterning that you see showing up in your life, usually it's because, of course, you haven't really learned the lesson the universe is trying to teach you. Second of all, you haven't come to love either that part of yourself, the shadow self, that darkness within yourself. You haven't accepted that part of yourself, and you're trying to push it away and say, you know what, this isn't good enough. I'm not accepting of this part of you, whatever it may be. And oftentimes what we perceive as a dark part of ourselves is really just something that society has projected onto us as darkness. You're not allowed, maybe you're a man and you're not allowed to like other men in a certain way, or whatever it is. So much of what we translate as, not good enough, or an incorrect behavior, is often just rules that society has given to us that we now kind of categorize as, negative behavior. We put a negative connotation to it. And I mean, I could go on and on and on about this, so I'm not going to get into every single little thing that potentially is right or wrong, because again, in terms of what I believe and the way that I see others, is that everything is beautiful. Everything is a kaleidoscope. There's a beautiful, I guess, spectrum of contrast, and all of it helps our learning. The darkness helps us understand the light. And there's going to be parts of that again, even myself, I don't fully understand, because there's some very darkness that I still cannot reconcile within myself, how it's able to exist and how it completely helps the light and the love, but it still exists. So without getting into that dialogue specifically, what I really want to talk about is the concept of forgiving yourself when you've done something that is perhaps less than where you'd like to be. And oftentimes what happens when we make a bad mistake, maybe we go out drinking, we have too much to drink, we party too much, and we do things that we're not proud of, okay? Just an example. The behavior was not becoming of you specifically, it wasn't your finest moment, whatever it is. But what we tend to do with any type of behavior like that is that we internalize it, and even if we don't verbalize it, we have a lot of self-loathing and guilt about whatever it is that we've just done, or if it's a specific pattern. And again, I'm going to kind of take this back to addictions, because I have been through, with my family members, with spouses, with a lot of individuals in my life, I've been through the cycle of addiction. And one thing that I've noticed, and I do want to say that myself, I haven't really personally struggled with addiction. I've just had people that are very close to me struggle with massive addictions. And that's been, a theme that I've had to go through my entire life. And so, there's been a great deal of learning around it for me. And so what I've noticed is that, especially with a repeated pattern like addiction, there's a lot of lack of self-love in that behavioral choice. And it not loving the self kind of allows the addict to keep doing the negative behavior. They utilize the I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, nobody wants me, fuck it anyways, all of these negative self-talk behaviors to just allow them to keep jumping into this escape rather than valuing themselves and fighting for a better life. And so, the minute that you let the guard down and you start to love yourself is when you kind of hit that sweet spot. Because when you start to impart or impose self-love on everything that you do, you're gonna start fighting for yourself. It just is part of what happens. You want more for yourself the way that you would want more for others. It's like a maternal or a paternal energy, but even though it comes from within, it's kind of like that God force, or that, the force of Mother Earth, whatever you want to call it. It starts to emanate from within, and you just start fighting for yourself in a different way. It stems from self-love, and self-love stems from the courage to have the ability to forgive the self. So there's another aspect of this that is really, really important, and that is also living in the now. So not projecting your thoughts into the past, because when we live in the past, we're going over things that we've done, we're berating ourselves, we're getting frustrated, we're basically marinating in past successes that are keeping us from focusing on what we need to do right now. So you can either be in a really negative headspace about the past, or you can be in a really positive headspace about the past. Either way, that is gone, and what you need to focus on each and every day is what is happening right now, what you can be doing right now in this moment to improve your situation. And if you're lingering in the past, and that lingering is negative and detrimental, if you're beating yourself up and you're going over past mistakes, that is totally useless. You need to forgive whatever it is, whatever craziness happened in your past. It's gone, it's dead, it's useless to you unless you're using it to form a new futuristic plan. But still, impart a massive amount of forgiveness towards yourself, because that's the most beautiful gift you can give yourself. And in the same way, when we think about building our future, again, visualization, a really amazing, beautiful tool, but don't spend too much time in visualization mode and too little time in living in the now and in the action mode and just enjoying where you are and what you're doing, okay? Now, letting go of guilt, okay? Guilt is something that will crush your dreams, crush your soul. It is really a useless, I don't want to say completely useless, because it does have its purpose, but use it wisely. Guilt is a mechanism of contrast where we can see what we didn't like to do in terms of our patterning, and we can instantly visualize a better version of how we could have done it. But then let it go. Don't keep, rolling over the same tracks of guilt, because that's just going to lead to that self-loathing behavior, that lack of self-love. And if you do that too much, you're going to want to escape it, because essentially you're creating this massive prison within your own mind where you're just beating yourself up. It's just a constant battle within yourself of not loving who you are. And of course you're going to want to escape that. If your mind is not a beautiful place to be, why would you want to be in it? So that's again when I was talking a little bit about addiction, you need to create a headspace, a mental space, where you are, because everything is mind. It needs to be beautiful. When you're in yourself, when you're mano a mano with you, it's got to be the safest place you can ever imagine. And that's really the quest, is to make your internal world a safe, beautiful haven that no matter what is happening outside you, you can retreat into that headspace, and what resides there is absolute unconditional love for yourself. And when you finally cross over into this sort of nirvana, blissful way of existence, you start to love everything else around you, because there's so much love just emanating from within you, and with your home where you calibrate is filled with so much peace and love and unconditional love that you just start to radiate that to every single being around you. So that it's just such a powerful thing that anyone can do. And it doesn't matter where you are in life. It doesn't matter if you have been let go from your job, if you're going through a divorce, if you're feeling, I went through a tremendous amount of loss last year, losing so many people I loved. If you're in grief, again, you tend to, when we're going through a lot of grief or pain or loss, we're trying to retreat from that emptiness that we feel. But if what is inside of us isn't a safe harbor, we're going to run into issues. And that's where we start to try to run and escape. And now there's a million ways that people will try to do this. There's gambling addictions, there's addictions to, alcohol, drugs, partying, addictions to frivolous relationships, addictions to chatting with people online, pornography, it's on and on and on. There's so many ways that human beings can try to escape the mental prison that they've essentially created for themselves due to a lack of love and due to that self-loathing, guilty headspace that they've created. And maybe, again, when we're talking about grief, maybe it's just that loss, that emptiness, and when you're in depression, anxiety, grief, sorrow, any of those lower calibrating emotions, I'm not saying they don't exist. I mean, I couldn't go through the pain of losing my grandma, losing my best friend, my dog that was with me for 16 years. I couldn't just wake up the next morning and say like, okay, everything is okay, I'm fine, I'm ready. Obviously, I had to go through the grief process, but I also, during that process, was able to really move through it in a more gentle way. Because again, I had a lot of unconditional love for myself. I understood that the love that I had for them, because again, the love that I had for them was so incredible. And I don't even want to say had, because it wasn't in the past tense. It was in me. It was part of me. It still is part of me. So even though I don't see them in their physical, each and every day I carry them with me. And that goes for everybody that I've lost in my life, which, there's a number of them that I've had to go through, really painful loss in terms of family members that were my world, that created that safe haven for myself. But what I've consistently realized on my journey is that love, it's me, it's in me, and because I know that I have a spirituality, that I have a belief, that I have a connection to the divine, that I have that God principle inside of me, and that's what keeps me safe, and that's also what keeps everything that I've ever experienced safe, if that makes sense. So again, it doesn't matter what you're going through or what trauma you're going through, giving yourself that forgiveness, giving yourself that love, and creating that space mentally where you are diligently working on the infrastructure of your mental world, it's going to transform your life. Because again, the more beautiful your internal world, the more beautiful your external world will become. And it's a daily practice. It's actually a practice every single second of the day, because there's always going to be things that we come across that are frustrating. There's going to be somebody that cuts us off. There's going to be, a tax bill that's unexpectedly high. There's going to be a vacation that doesn't work out. There's a million different things in our days that we're going to come up against that are, roadblock or seeming roadblocks to our happiness. And if we can always be working on residing in this gentle, loving, safe kind of home frequency energy, that is where we'll start to find our ultimate freedom. Now, understanding, and I was sort of touching on this, understanding that love is inside of you, not outside of you. This was a big one for me in terms of being able to move through the seasons of my life and move through difficulties in my life. So what I started to realize with my patterns in life, maybe I'm going to call them mistakes, but not really mistakes so much as opportunities for learning. So the universe is always going to, especially if there's a specific lesson that we're meant to learn, it's going to give us that lesson over and over and over again until we kind of get it right. Well, not kind of, until we get it right. And it will show up in different forms at different times to challenge us to see if our souls have risen to the challenge or if we have really acclimated the lesson within our soul's learning. And again, this isn't a bad thing. I mean, it's kind of that whole thing that, the person that keeps falling in the same hole. That's a good thing. If you were supposed to learn a lesson and the lesson wasn't delivered to you over and over and over again, the universe, the world, your life wouldn't be a very good teacher. So because you have a very diligent teacher in life, and because the universe and the quantum field really genuinely cares about your success, it's going to give you the lessons that you need to learn in this lifetime over and over and over in different kind of in a different fashion. It might come to you in a different way until you really have that aha moment and you say, okay, that's what I was supposed to learn. That's what I was supposed to do right. I see the contrast for what it is. I see, I don't want to say the messy behavior or the incorrect behavior, the distorted behavior that I was partaking in. And I understand that distorted behavior doesn't correlate with the laws of the universe eloquently. So therefore, the result of it wasn't good. It didn't bring to me what I would have liked. It wasn't a pleasant experience. It was a lot of contrast. Okay, I'm supposed to learn from the contrast. And that's the beauty of it. You're supposed to be learning. And these are the lessons. These are the beautiful lessons that we get to learn. So with that, understanding that anytime that we are perceiving a lot of struggle or a lot of contrast, there is something we're supposed to be paying attention to. Because when we're in that ultimate home frequency flow state and we're doing everything authentically, correctly, and following the laws of the universe, it's not going to be a struggle. It's not going to be, you're not going to suffer anything. It's just going to be blissful and it's going to be easy, and every part of it is going to unfold beautifully. And if it's not unfolding beautifully, and if you are feeling a lot of contrast or there's obstacles in front of you, then you're supposed to be either building something in your character or learning something. And just start to enjoy the process. If you don't get the lesson right, forgive yourself, apply a lot of unconditional love, and then do the same thing in terms of how you treat others. Give them the same grace that you should be giving yourself. And if you're somebody that, and I was this way, if you tend to be giving your grace to everybody else and giving unconditional love to everybody else, but when it comes to you, you are super hard on yourself and you beat yourself up, stop doing it. Because again, you're only going to be impeding your own success. You're taking way longer to get to where you want to be by treating yourself poorly, by treating yourself this way. And at the end of the day, the purpose for all of us is to be ridiculously happy every day, to live our ultimate life, to just experience life in health, in abundance, with crazy amounts of happiness and joy, and people around us that support us, great friendships, great family, great loving relationships. That is the point of life. But we also have to, again, follow the basic rules the universe gives us and do it in an undistorted way. So hopefully this was a little bit helpful to anybody out there that's, having a bad day or could use a little bit of encouragement. Know you're on the right path. Don't beat yourself up. Know you're an amazing human being, and just get up tomorrow and kick ass, or kick ass with the rest of your day today. And it doesn't have to be monumental. It can just be easy joy. We always look at doing these big clean out your closet, or reorganize your life, or start a business. It doesn't have to be that overwhelming. You can just make the world a better place by being a joyful person, being in gratitude, being in unconditional love. And when you get into these states, what you're going to find in terms of manifesting and bringing things to you, it just starts to kind of happen. The flow comes to you. So it's all about recalibrating yourself, recalibrating the mind, getting yourself into a state of happiness, unconditional love for yourself, unconditional love for others, and then you create magic. You create great things. So thank you for tuning in to this episode, and I'm sure there'll be more to come.